of you have probably signed this or drawn on it already, but if you haven't, or if you want to add more, it needs more decoration. So, feel free. It would probably be the decoration of the headquarters of my business once I get it going.
Very nice.
It's inspirational. Collaborative artwork at its finest.
Yes. So you have to sign it at some point,
Yeah.
multiple times, and write stuff like thrust wherever I wrote it in multiple places.
Multiple places. Yeah. And then other people wrote it for you.
I think I just wrote it twice. Okay, so I really don't know all that I'm going to say, so feel free to butt in, add comments, talk. I don't care, because I will ramble, and I'm sometimes nervous in talking in front of people. So I was kind of debating what to talk about, because I got encouragement from my roommate and from Jen and others to talk. And Jen and I decided last night, or Jen gave me a suggestion of talking about how social media has changed my life. The Spacey Awesomeness edition. Because, I mean, I've always been interested in space, and it's hard for me to talk about space with my family because they just don't get it. They don't care. I mean, they kind of show passion or show interest because I talk about it so much and I'm around it so much. But I feel like it's harder, say, around coworkers, and there's that aspect of me getting my coworkers who are the same generation, not necessarily inspiring a younger generation, but same generation or one older than me, who basically could care less about the space program. None of them at work would ever watch a shuttle mission until they were around me and I talked about it nonstop all the time. My nickname at work was NASA. And so like when I was down here for all the shuttle missions, they would like call me when I was waiting for it to launch and they wanted to know what was going on, and they started to get more into it. But the real thing that changed for me, besides just inspiring others through talking about it and getting them into science, was how being, say, on something like Twitter kind of changed my life, because I felt kind of stuck where I was, and, you know, I've done stuff fascinating, interesting, gone places, done astrophysics, but never was really able to reach out to people. But I started tweeting, not necessarily as early as some did. Like I just started about 1.5 years ago, before 125 launched. And I tweeted a little bit through that. But I really started, my first major experience with it was the STS 125 tweet up at NASA headquarters. And that's kind of how I started meeting more people that had the same space interests as I did. And they were passionate about it. And so we started getting like this little, it felt like a little close-knit community of people that I could talk to about space, because even though I had friends at home that were kind of interested in space, they weren't necessarily as passionate about it as all my Twitter friends or some at the time that were on Facebook. So then it kind of grew a little bit over the summer, like meeting Jen online and tweeting with her. And then what really kind of launched it was the STS 129 tweet up, which I met a chunk of you at, or a few of you. That whole experience, I think, kind of just blew things up. Like, there's two things that I think I'm known for. One is thrust. The other one that a lot of people have seen recently, at least on the 133 tweet up page, is that picture of the person holding the NASA tweet up badge in front of the VAB. That's me, taken by Heather's friend, Brian Knight, who's at Outdoor Type. And so, yay! But that kind of, people kind of started to know me by thrust. And if I don't say thrust, I get yelled at every once in a while.
And sometimes if you do.
Very true. There are some people who will yell at me if I say it. But it's kind of what I'm known for. And so it's interesting going places and people interacting with me, not saying I'm cool and do cool things like Jen does.
I'm not cool.
You're cool. But it's like going from someone who's not known that much to just one simple thing like hashtag thrust, or how simple things like, I mean, just like that can change things. And I still get made fun of. Like, I just recently moved to Florida, which is a huge thing that social media has done for me. I met my housemate on Twitter because he works at KSC, and I wanted to be closer to that, and a lot of my friends are down at KSC that are back on Twitter. I'm getting there. I'm working on that. I told you this is very random. I just bounce around and ramble every once in a while, so I apologize. But it's just small little things, like having a bigger influence. Like, my family knows what Twitter is now. They don't get it. I get yelled at for tweeting, like I was saying when my family drove me down because they supported me moving down here. I got yelled at a few times for tweeting on the way down because they just thought I was texting, and they don't understand necessarily how it's like kind of like, in a way, people are interested in what you can be doing on Twitter. Or, as Tim mentioned, I'm looking for a job. Occasionally I've made comments about looking for a job, and there's just little things that you never know what's going to happen to make things fall in place.
So out of yesterday's tweet that we crafted for you, have you heard anything back about?
I did tweet it.
Okay.
One person said they would hire me.
Nice.
But I'm going to go back and kind of expand it a little bit. And I felt like it might have been lost in like all of the tweeting that was going on yesterday, so I'm going to work on improving it. And I've been kind of shy at times about tweeting about looking for a job, but definitely not necessarily as shy about it now. But it's one of those things that social media, you never know what it's going to open for you. And I put Jen on the panel, so she better get up here. But things like that, she didn't necessarily think that was going to take off, or didn't expect it to become as huge, like the Space Tweep Society, or Rocketopia, or so.
Yeah, Twitter, my coworkers laugh at it. Like, what do you want to do that for? That's a waste of time. And now I laugh at them because we're coming to the end of the space shuttle program, and all of us are looking to find new jobs, and I've got things going on. I've got prospects, and it's all because of contacts I made on Twitter, and friendships that I've made, and it's such a powerful medium, and some people will never get it, but for those of us who do, I mean, a lot of us know each other already because of that. So I started the Space Tweep Society as like just a goofy idea that came into my mind. It was the end of May, beginning of June of last year, because there was sort of a loose association of people that were space enthusiasts that sort of followed each other, but there was no formal anything. And I just thought, there could be some real power in this. What would happen if we harnessed it and had some kind of a formal organization of it? Well, as formal as a tweet can be. So
a web page with a list.
Formal being a relative word here.
Yes. So the group has now got, I think, around 800 people registered. And we've had some really successful space tweet ups, and I'm really proud to know all of you. So it's amazing what it's done. I've traveled because of Twitter. This is my second time to DC because of it. I've been to Houston and out to Ames, which was really cool. Just the opportunities that you can get through Twitter are so amazing.
They're huge,
but
people don't get it.
It's one of those things, though, that you get out of it what you put into it. So, I mean, if you go into it with a bad attitude, then, and I think that's the worst thing ever when companies or even if an organization like NASA was to say, oh, all astronauts have to tweet, that would just be really bad. Because if somebody doesn't want to do it, you're going to be able to tell, and it's going to be really bad. So,
Okay, so for newbies, what advice do you have for people that are who have the right attitude and are just starting to get into it?
Start conversations, or jump into other people's conversations.
Okay.
And definitely just be yourself, let your personality kind of shine through.
Yeah, don't just broadcast.
Yes.
Because so many people on Twitter just broadcast, and you're not gonna make connections that way, you know?
Right. It's don't be afraid to butt into somebody else's conversation, and because it's kind of what Twitter is for.
Yeah, you see people apologize for
I know.
that a lot.
They're like, I'm sorry for butting in.
Well,
I'm like, isn't that the point?
If we wanted this to be private, we'd be like texting each other or something.
It's a party line.
Yeah.
Definitely, but don't be afraid to ask questions. No one, well, at least none of the space tweets I know will be like, you're dumb, you don't know the answer. They'll be happy to answer your questions. That's
And if somebody is rude, somebody did actually say to me, well, that's a really stupid question. And I immediately unfollowed that person. And
right.
That's what happens.
You have the power. That's the great thing. If somebody is rude or inappropriate, unfollow. Okay, look, they're gone.
Yeah.
It's great.
If they figure out some way of still being rude, block them.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Just, I mean, they only have power if you give it to them. So, but it's been an overwhelmingly positive experience for me with only a few little minor bumps, and that's why we're here today, is because of it. So.
Yeah.
Could it be any better? Can we do anything
Always.
to improve it?
I'm sure. Anybody got any ideas?
I don't know. I mean, how can you improve it? I mean, I haven't traveled because of Twitter, but all my travels have been a lot more enjoyable because of Twitter.
Yeah.
You know, I end up in Florida, I'm like, hey, any space tweeps want to do something? And Jen's like, meet me over at Fish Lips.
And now it'll be Jen and Tiff.
I think it could be better if Twitter didn't go down all the time.
Yeah.
And if the AT&T network didn't fail us so often.
Yes.
And if they want to put all these new features in, and you keep reading about these features, and it's like, would you just make the website work first?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Before adding features, ensure the ones that you already have work.
And most of the features just seem really unnecessary. Like they're trying to get more into like Facebook's territory or something.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people really love Facebook, and maybe they can explain why to me, but I'm not a huge fan. But I think it's mainly because of it's so much work. There's so much maintenance. Like every time you go on, you got to answer all these requests and do all these things and sending me emails all the time. But with Twitter, I feel like I can just go on and I can tweet, I can read tweets, I can do whatever I feel like without handling.
There's no mafia wars.
If you ignore it
Yeah.
for a while,
Farm bill.
you don't feel the obligation to go back and
Right.
make sure you haven't missed anything. It's like,
Exactly.
okay, yeah, I wasn't watching.
Now, see, I'm the opposite way. I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss something. Somebody's going to be like asking me a question or sending me, and I'm going to miss it for 3 days if I don't go and check all of my replies. Whereas on Facebook, at least it gives you that ridiculous list of, like, this is all the stuff that's happened, or somebody sent you a message, or,
Yeah.
And I ignore all the requests anyway, so it doesn't,
Yeah, but I can't stand having those little numbers there. I gotta clear them.
I've gotten used to the numbers. I've finally gotten used to them.
I can't do
they're there.
it. I have to clear them.
How many people here actually use the website as opposed to TweetDeck or some other client?
I use the website almost primarily on my computer. Well, I use it on my phone, but I use the website a lot.
I never ever use the website.
Yeah.
Totally
I
TweetDeck.
did for
absolutely
months,
positively
and just recently have.
As a developer, I hate the API so much and refuse to use anything that uses it.
but I mean, like, there's no time, like, URL shortener on the website. What do you do?
I use Bitly.
And then,
Yeah.
so you do that separately and
I have
then
a
paste the link in.
Bitly sidebar thing where you just click on it and it shortens it right then. So.
And then you can post it directly on Twitter from that.
Yeah. Well,
Dennis.
I
Copy
usually
and paste?
copy and paste. You just click it and it copies automatically.
The reason I asked if it could be better is I'm working on a separate system for NASA right now. It's a knowledge management system, and it has to do with thousands of different media components. So from MP3 files to video to cataloging images. And the real trick for me has been, how do I make this system collaborative so that you don't necessarily need to share, but you want to share. So when I think of Space Sweep Society, I want to be able to click on any one of the things that are being written on and immediately let my friends know about them. That I think could be better. So Twitter's one component, but it can't be the whole conversation, because if your family laughs about it, you're not about to get them on there to see the link that you just retweeted.
And that's what Ryan Cobert's in the chat room, and he said that that's how he shares pictures with his family. He's like gets a lot of messages. But I do the same thing. If I want my mom to see a picture, I make sure that it's on Facebook.
Yeah. But it's a different audience, though.
Yeah, I linked my Twitter account to my Facebook account.
Yeah.
So anytime I update my Twitter account, it updates my Facebook account. Any link I put in there will, migrate over. And then that way, any of my family who is on Facebook and refuses
There are
to
different
go on Twitter.
conversations, and different people need to see that conversation in different ways. Like in a Twitter stream.
Yes.
Right? That's a whole other group.
You're right. And I recently realized that Flickr's not just for storing photos.
Oh, no way.
It's a whole community in itself, and it's one to be reckoned with. So that is another area that you can definitely reach out to people. People search for things on Flickr, and they start commenting on pictures, and they have discussions in the comments, and it shouldn't be overlooked for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend who's a software developer who's working on conversational tools, and really trying to push for all of these things to let there be things that can hook into all of them and give you the context of the conversation and that kind of thing. Without you go over on this one and you do things its way, and you go over on that one and do things that. But it's not there yet.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is it seems like there's starting to be so many of them that it's a little bit splintered.
But there are actually kind of open connections that are starting to be adopted.
There's some.
In some. And so that may, in the end, be the solution.
Mm-hmm. So what do we have written up here? Oh, she's giving us a little synopsis here. So, anybody else have ideas of how it could be better? I've noticed that Twitter came out really recently with that tweet me button that people can put on websites to have people quickly be able to tweet a link to an article.
And there's been like share buttons and stuff, and now it's just officially Twitter.
Right.
They've been through third parties, and I've noticed the way I choose a Twitter client is almost by the features that it has that Twitter doesn't necessarily support.
That's true.
Like how does it shrink URLs? Does it, what's the picture hosting website? Because there's 15,000 of those, and I don't necessarily want it on my Twitter picture is better than your twitterpicture.com, which maybe default on something. Like, that kind of stuff. The add-ons have determined what I like to use best, and that I think would be really nice is if there was a way that it was easier to select that stuff. I can't use Twitter to post my pictures because I want them to be on Flickr, so I have to go through the Flickr application, which will then post it on Twitter for me instead of going through the Twitter application and having it put my pictures.
Yeah, and I use this crazy one. The only reason it has two things that I like, and one of them is that in each tweet that's a response to something, it's got it, the one that it was in response to, right underneath it in tiny print, so you don't have to go anywhere to look and see what it was in reply to, so it's a big time saver. And the other one is that it lets you send DMs of 280 characters, which is pretty sweet.
Whoa.
But it's kind of slow, and otherwise it's not a...
What is a DM?
A direct message.
Oh, okay.
That's the private line.
It's a private tweet, basically.
Space username, and it sends them, if they're following you.
They're following you and you're following them.
And you're following them, yes. Which is also annoying.
You say that D space username. I've never used that before. That's only for if you did the text message way or whatever. That came about from when you people were using a lot of phones with. You go to their, you should have it in your little list, your drop-down list if you DM them frequently on the Twitter app or the Twitter main page, or you can go to their page and there should be a little thing that says message on the side.
Well, and on the website now, they
That's
have
the
pop-up that comes if you go over somebody's username. There's the pop-up that comes up. You click the little cog thingy, and it'll have direct message this person if they're following you.
I have never ever done that D thing that you're talking about. Yeah.
I do still
it's
sometimes actually. I will actually text in. And
really? I've never done it.
Really?
I just did that last night when I was letting Carrie Ann know.
When it's too slow to open it on my phone, I'll
just
text.
When the network's not fast enough, but I know I can get a text message out, I'll
That's
just text
hardcore,
it instead.
man.
That's also how I justified to my family. You're on the internet all the time. Like, I can text it and it goes everywhere. Oh, that's so futuristic. You send a text message and it hits Twitter and Facebook? Like, yeah. It's amazing technology.
So when somebody asks you what Twitter is, how do you describe it? I mean, I saw this article, and it was called "How to Explain Twitter to Your Grandmother." And when I found it, my husband said, "Oh, give me that. I need to take that to work to show my coworkers." Oh boy. So it can be difficult to describe it to people that don't get it or haven't become aware of it.
Even more difficult to describe why it makes any sense to do.
Right,
Even
why
if
you want to do it.
Exactly what's happening. They're kind of like,
Go ahead,
why would you
Dennis.
do that?
Just blank.
You blank?
I totally blank.
Because we live in times where we're all very, very busy people, and we don't have the time to hang out with our friends as often or for as long as we'd like to. And so the way we keep up to date with our friends, or have a nice little argument with them or whatever, is via social media. And Twitter is an exquisite way of doing it, because it's just like 10 friends around the bar, they can all see the conversation happening.
You mentioned friends specifically, and I'd like to just kind of very quickly go back to the original line of the name of this particular conversation, just being that how social media has affected real life. I didn't know 98% of you in real life before today or before yesterday.
Or
true story.
Right.
Before social media.
Before social media, right? Exactly. But now people walk in, and like the other day, I had trouble remembering Aaliyah's her real name. I was like, and
That's why mine.
Hey, Blue Skies.
Right, and that was way easier for me, and I still refer to people, by their Twitter name or by their handle, kind of thing, because that's who they are to me. That's who you are to me. If that just.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I got it back. All right, so I've been thinking about edutainment and spam and authenticity and authentic relationships, and that this works into that. All right, so Britney Spears has over 1 million followers. Okay? Well, you laugh at that, but that is an extremely powerful mechanism for message. So what do we think about the spam engines that are able to generate 1,000 followers in a day?
Well, you say spam engine, but and not that Britney Spears isn't. Not that Britney Spears' Twitter isn't. I'm not saying that. But if I was interested in Britney Spears, say I'm 16, and I saw Britney Spears has a Twitter, I'm totally going to automatically follow that.
Right. No, and that
simply because it says Britney Spears. But if it says, Britney's vajayjay, I don't care as much.
Well, what about the followers that we all have that have 20,000, 40,000, 60,000 followers themselves that are, SEO experts and social media experts?
There was a thing I read recently that was talking about.
If they say they're experts,
but they're not
But
really.
if they have 60,000 followers and an official NASA account has 2,000.
But are they communicating?
But I think a lot of it's.
Well, that's what.
But what makes somebody an expert?
That's my argument, right? If they are successful, if they are,
if
they're, well, if they're successful, and this is the difficulty. How do we measure success?
There was an interesting article that I read, and it was talking about the high numbers of followers that celebrities have, and it was. I can't remember how they measured it, but they found that those people really didn't have very much influence over those followers. It was really, really low, and that there were other people that didn't have near the number of followers that actually were getting messages out where they weren't. So it really isn't about numbers.
Right, and did they show that this is what
I can't remember. I'm going to have to look it up.
And you have to sell it to your superiors and say, these are the metrics. Like, this is what I'm talking about. We need to be able to go back to them and say, all right, maybe we have 100 followers, but you know what? Every 101 of those is going to do exactly, or look.
Or it's going
to spread it to their friends.
Right, exactly. I think that's where the retweet, metrics kind of come in. Asher Gurley says something. I think it's funny. I retweet it, and then my mom in Florida thinks it's funny. She retweets it, and then her dog thinks it's funny.
That's actually something that SDO is putting money into. Is how do we evaluate the social media efforts that we've started, and hopefully it will continue to do, because it is time. an effort, we want a return on investment. So we've been working with our evaluators to come up with initial surveys for like, what kind of impact has this had on your life? But what we really want is to partner with sociologists and programmers that can write programs for us that will do things like how many people followed us first and then followed other people who follow us. Like for the tweet ups that we've had, you know, how many people are following each other and then how many of them are talking to each other? How far does the message that we broadcast go? Like what defines the influence, and you know, what are the metrics that we can use to evaluate that? Like nobody's doing that yet, and because we've been looking.
Right.
There are very few tools right now.
Running the NASA HSF account last summer, one of the ways that I had certain target audience and demographics that I was going after. Not necessarily ones that were dictated, but ones that I really wanted to get to. Females between the ages of 14 and 35. People that lived in certain parts of the country that weren't where public meetings were happening. Those were things that I could track on Facebook, that I couldn't track on Twitter. So if I had a Facebook profile, right, a fan page, I can see on that fan page what city people live in. Not necessarily by user, but I can see what city they live in, how old they are, and Facebook doesn't track this, but other things, you know, socioeconomic things that might weigh in on whether they're even getting to that information. So there are other ways to get to it right now that, like you said,
yeah, there's like Twitter Analyzer, that website that kind of works sometimes.
That one?
Well, I mean, yeah, it really is that one. I mean, it's cool when it works. It'll tell you everything from like when most of your followers are online, so you know when to tweet, so that the most people see it, to where they live and you know how often you're being retweeted. But it's not reliable. And even when we were doing using the SEO's Go hashtag for our events, we didn't see all of the replies. Like for some reason, like maybe 10% of them got lost out in the ether. So like the system itself is not reliable, which means it's going to be impossible to evaluate.
And then you have anomalies too, because like at that SDO's Go, after it launched, I was tweeting SDO has left the building.
Yeah.
And you were picking up that stuff.
Yeah. So. And we had the SDO road trip hashtag,
that really got me was that actually hit the trending topics as Solar Dynamics Observatory.
Well, that was because of the first light images, because people were using the full title when they were retweeting the images, which really had nothing to do with us per se, except for finding all of those people and saying, hey, we're on Twitter. Actually talk to us.
But so that's when we're talking about new features or features that you would like to see. You know, obviously, being able to get a better sense of where your message is going is something that that they could support better.
But some people wouldn't be interested in tweeting if they had to divulge that information. You know, they like the anonymity of it. So.
Yeah,
that's
and especially once you get into things, well, this would be really useful to be able to track. And it's like, yeah, but then you're getting into marketing information that I don't necessarily want to be tracked, and it's a trade-off.
And then you get into lies on Facebook, and other things. So people who just outright lie about who they are.
Well, that can be on any medium. Yeah. I mean, people can walk up to you and lie too. So.
Oh yeah, but it's harder to claim your, something else in person when it's totally not true.
I have a very underage cousin on Facebook who should not be on Facebook in terms of their policy, using basically his mom's account.
Now, all of my nieces and nephews have Facebook accounts, I think.
Something just came to mind. When I went to a conference, NASA conference up in Boston a couple years ago, there was a presentation, it was a knowledge management conference, and they had a presentation on something called talk rooms. And these were being instituted in large Japanese organizations. And what they would do, they would randomly pick out select people in the corporation, one-to-one, to talk to one another. One person would talk for 5 minutes, and the other person couldn't say anything. They would just listen. And then it would flip, and then for 5 minutes, the other person would talk. What Twitter is that on a hyper-fast and hyper-huge level. And really, part of the way that I kind of convince other people that this is a useful medium is to say, well, these are the other pieces that have worked in the past, and all of those other pieces are on Twitter right now. Like being able to share images via email, you do it every single day. I do it on Twitter every single day. Being able to send music to people, or hey, check this new thing out, or this new place. I mean, place is now huge. Geolocation is massive now. I mean, to have a Foursquare location be this conference is 18 months ago would not have even made sense.
Exactly.
And there's others. I mean, now they have the Facebook places, and there's Gowalla and Bright Kite, and probably a
even
bunch
on Twitter
of other
you
ones.
can enable
your location. Yep. And then you always get all these people that want to go on there and say, "Oh, it's so unsafe."
Right.
But I mean,
well, the thing is, if you don't ever broadcast where you live, then it's okay. But if you broadcast where you live, then it kind of is unsafe. Because people in a lot of cases know exactly what you own and leave in your house, and where you live, and when you're out.
I haven't been, ravaged yet.
Like, I mean, that the one place I never ever use a location thing from is my house. Nobody knows where I live unless they've come to visit me, and then I trust them anyway.
Where you live, and I'm coming to get you.
That's true.
Now, of course, being a musician, I don't just have followers that are like cool people like people here. I have a lot of complete strangers that are music fans, and some of them are crazy.
Some of people that you encounter in everyday life are crazy. There's a subset of,
none of them know where I live either. It's very rare that anybody knows where I live, unless you're a good enough friend of mine that you are invited to my house.
So where do you live? Can I come over?
You are welcome to
what
visit
was that address
again? Party there tomorrow night.
I have this problem that all my friends are just like really totally crazy, so.
Why is that a problem?
Did you have any other Twitter noob questions? I mean, not to put you on the spot.
No, I think that probably, who else here doesn't tweet or just started tweeting?
I don't tweet, actually.
You don't tweet?
And I'm getting harassed to do it. I do. It's one of those things I actually have the time to sit down and learn to do it properly. Because I want
give you lessons.
Yeah.
But no,
it takes 5 minutes.
You're missing the point.
Yeah.
Like,
just type in what you're eating for lunch.
No.
Wrong. Bad answer.
I get asked all the time. Like I'll say that I'm going out to dinner or whatever, and then all of a sudden I'll get all these requests. Take a picture, take a picture. I'm like, really? I thought the thing was everybody hated that.
Well, if you're only taking a picture of what you're eating and not who you're eating with, then yeah, maybe.
Did anybody see Betty White on Saturday Night Live? She made a really good point. She said, there's this new thing, and it's Facebook or Twitter, and apparently people show their vacation pictures, and you sit and look through them. We used to think that was terrible. Yeah. Now it's like, I want to see them while you're on vacation.
At the same time.
Yeah. And if you get them as you're on vacation, and like I can see that somebody's like, I get a picture of the mountains, and somebody's like, oh, I'm going climbing this weekend, here's the first mountain, I'll be out of range the rest of the time. Like, wow, that's so cool. I know what you're doing, I can get that sense of
well, not to mention, it is also totally
happening.
different between Dave going home in the next couple of days, which I know he never does, so I'm not even going to look at him. But for instance, should he go home and say, yeah, it was really weird, we had this tribble thing, and I got beamed in the head, people are going to go, uh-huh. But if he tweeted that picture out, like, I know you can't do it as it's happening, but I'm sure somebody did, or got it really close, be like, oh my god, Dave Masters just got beamed in the head with a tribble. That's different. It's interactive, and I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah. I think some of it too is like back then when they said, "Oh, we hated that." Back then, you were kind of limited to friendships with the people that happened to be around you. And one of the things that I like best about Twitter is that it lets me have the friends that I want to have, not just the people that happen to be in the physical location around me.
That's what we've been saying. It's community's not geographical anymore.
But it's also
One
not
of my best friends now lives in
it's an
Australia.
opt-in, opt-out type of thing where like you're not automatically following everybody. You know, if I decide SDO is stupid one day, I can unfollow you. It doesn't mean that you ever unfollow. It's not like a one-to-one. But you know, and then later on, I'm like, oh, you know what? I really miss those SDO updates, and I'll go re-follow you. You know, or put you on a list where I can just see when I want to. Or there's so many options for how to interact.
You can click on a picture or not. If you don't want to see somebody's vacation pictures, you don't have to click that link.
Right. It's you're not being held captive in their living room while they're
for 2
staring
hours
at
while
you.
they tell you stories.
And I think that's the biggest problem. We like seeing pictures of what are people doing in 2-minute chunks.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's short.
When I have time, And
at your
tons of times where on Facebook
We're
we're
also getting the picture of, here's a great picture of Dave holding his eye. Versus, here's the 50 pictures that come before it. Hold on, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Well,
Eventually
if
there's
you were
one good
Dave's,
picture.
like aunt or something, and you wanted to see that. That's what I love about Facebook is I can say, oh crap, I haven't kept up with my friend Luke. I wonder what he's been up to, and if he's, you know, on Facebook, I can just scroll back a whole bunch and say, oh, right, and they got a new dog, and they moved into a new house, and they got a divorce, and he's remarried. Like, wow, I should do that.
So you can cram for when he's going to come to visit, right?
Exactly.
It's your
or no,
cheat
not
sheet.
to ask about the ex-wife.
How is Julie? It's Diana. Yes, that's one.
Can I ask everybody, like, how many of you here have a lot of your friends that you had before Twitter that you do communicate with on Twitter or Facebook? And do you have a lot of, you know, your old friends and stuff on that as well?
The only person.
Old friends on Facebook.
Yeah, it's
Old
almost.
virtual friends.
I think I'm mostly the same way. It's like old friends and schoolmates and whatnot are all Facebook, and then all the cool people.
Do you ever find when you
Facebook is for the friends you used to have.
Yes.
Twitter is for the friends that you are about to have.
Yes.
That's the description.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is good for finding people. Facebook is good for being found. I mean, that's why I'm on Facebook still, is because you know, people who know me from wherever can actually find me there. And Twitter is great for just sort of exploring and finding new things and that kind of thing. But if you actually want to know somebody and want to find them, not very, you know, it's much more difficult.
Some of you may have noticed that I sound slightly foreign.
No. I never noticed.
No clue. The question is which part of Texas am I from?
Yes, that's where it is.
Waving hand? It was a waving hand thing.
Oh no, I was talking in the chat room. They asked, is there anybody here that's in there? Like, yes, I'm in both. So.
And some of you may also notice that I work at JPL. There is a 6.5-year-long story that is almost entirely focused on social media that made the person who lives in Britain end up working at JPL. And in fact, the process for me actually starting to apply for the job and work on the visa started with a tweet last November. But the extraordinary thing is, mainly because of people I know via Twitter, when I moved 5,500 miles from Leicester to Pasadena at the end of April, I felt like I'd come home because I knew just so many people who were already there, who worked where I was about to start working, who lived where I was about to start working.
That's
and
awesome.
It made emigration seem like the easiest thing in the world.
Wow, that's very powerful.
The only person in real life that I follow on Twitter that I know that from before Twitter is my husband.
And
I'm about to block him.
And that's kind of how I feel like with moving down to Florida, I felt like I was at home because I knew so many people down there, and it really helped ease the process. Because I wanted to move down there about 3 years ago, but nothing fell in place. But then things just started falling in place with finding my roommate basically via Twitter, in a way. By the way, shout out to Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Can't wait to have a party when I get back. But it made that falling into place easier, and then knowing that, I have connections down here for that, if I need help finding something or finding a car or finding a job, hint, hint, hint. I'm still looking for anything right now. I have an education, engineering. Hell, I worked in a restaurant for 3 years background. I can do anything. But it's just the connections that you make and that you don't necessarily expect.
Yeah, I mean, I went from just some person who couldn't decide what I wanted to do with my life to writing a song to almost making a living off of playing music. And it's all because of Twitter. 100%. And musicians ask me all the time, why are you on Twitter? It's all about Facebook and MySpace. It's all about Facebook. I barely use those sites. I have accounts, and they just languish. Everything came through Twitter. And that's pretty amazing, because I'm in one of the hardest businesses in the world.
I think that things happen on Twitter. It's like, you know, you can talk to people and whatever on Facebook, but Twitter just seems to be more of a catalyst for people to act. An example I'll give of that is that I recently put a project for a book on Kickstarter.com to get it funded, of a photo book of Kennedy Space Center sunrises, and I put that out on Twitter, and I also put it on Facebook, and I think all of the people either came from, some of them were, a couple of them were Kickstarter people that just like to look at all the new projects on there. And the rest of all the backers came from Twitter, and I didn't get anything from Facebook. So that was kind of interesting to me, because all of my old friends that I actually knew, like people I went to school with and camp with and family, are on Facebook, and they weren't the ones to back it.
It's funny how many of my high school friends are suddenly friending me on Facebook, and I'm not accepting.
Do you think Twitter, or the way that we're communicating at this point right now, has the same connotation that online dating had 8 years ago, 7 years ago?
What do you mean by connotation?
Well, we've all said that, you know, we get the snide remarks when it's Twitter, right?
Right? Absolutely. In fact, I flew across the country to meet a whole group of strangers that I knew only on Twitter, and I'm always leery of telling people who don't tweet themselves, like, tell my family, tell my housemates. I'm like, yeah, I've never met these people, but I know them. And when I got there, they were exactly the way I expected them to be.
And I mean, and with 129, I drove, well, I didn't drive. I rode Eric Merrill, who lives in Novi, Michigan. I'd never met him before except for on Twitter. He and I drove all the way down, 20 hours straight, all the way to the 129 to meet up. I'd never met him before.
So can we extrapolate from that to this 5, 6 years from now is going to be the standard way to communicate?
I don't know that it will.
I think it might evolve more.
You're doing what's will go away. Because, I mean, that's what I was saying.
The connotation will go
on
away.
the internet in 1995. And I got you met her where? For so long.
Let's say we met in the supermarket.
Right, but do you see what I'm saying? That, like, if I'm thinking about, I was talking to my 10-year-old brother the other day. We're driving, and he said something about Google Buzz, and I looked at him and I go, "What do you mean Google Buzz?" And he goes, "Yeah, I use Google Buzz." I mean, he just said it really quick, and I go, "How did that happen?" And he goes, "Oh, well, I was using Gmail for email, and then that was too slow, so we started using GChat, and now all my friends in elementary school are using Buzz because it's easier to just post something than walk away and then read the replies later." And I said, "Oh my God." And he goes, "Yeah, I unfollowed you." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "You just posted too much space stuff." He was just interested in something else. But to him, at 10, it's like, duh, like why would I use email? That's too slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll follow the trajectory of not being weird anymore and being okay, sure.
But it still won't be for everyone.
Well, yeah,
right.
Things like that will be commonplace. Right. Whether this particular one will be the thing, who knows.
And like I think that, like I mentioned, how my family hates it. They at least know that I do it. They acknowledge it, and they don't tweet, and they're never going to because that's their style. But they talk about it more, and they ask me about it, and just seeing that difference between, say, like November and now.
I drag people.
It's huge for them. Like, my mom is on Facebook now.
Really?
Which is scary.
So is mine.
I've dragged people onto Twitter a little bit here and there. I have brought a coworker on board, and some of you have met him. My boss is on there, but he tweets like once every couple of months. But some of the people I've dragged on it's stuck.
Yeah.
My husband is I didn't really drag him. I just tweeted and was getting such interesting information during a launch countdown one time. He was like, oh, that's kind of cool. What do you got there? And he just decided he wanted to check it out. So I don't ever really force, like if people say, oh, that's dumb, then I'm like, okay, good, we don't want you in there.
I was
anyway.
forced.
You were forced?
I was forced, completely. I wanted nothing to do with the site whatsoever.
Who forced you?
My best friend, this girl, Suze, she's Souphead on Twitter, and she spent 4 or 5 months telling me, you have to join Twitter, you would love Twitter, and gave me articles about it, and just pounded it into my head. And finally, just to shut her up, I joined Twitter. 3 days later, I found my first NASA account.
And that was it.
That was it.
Was NASA the impetus for anybody here to join Twitter? A lot of
Yeah,
people.
honestly, yeah, the NASA accounts were the first thing that was like, okay, this is something I would want to see. Yeah, before that, you know, my wife was on Twitter for a while doing a lot of stuff, and it was like, you know, it's okay. But once the mission started tweeting, then it was like, okay, that's, you know.
I joined Twitter right when I started writing my master's dissertation on the peaceful uses of outer space. And I thought, what's a cool way to research? And someone said, oh, try this thing called Twitter. Oh, okay. And I looked for NASA first, and frankly, I haven't really looked for anything else.
See, I made the transition from blogging. Somebody joined and like sent me an invitation that I knew, and it's funny because the person that sent me the invitation ended up like tweeting once and then dropping it. but I was already on there, and I had an instant group of people I already knew because I'd been blogging for like 4 years at that time, and a bunch of the people I blogged with had kind of moved over. So it just, and then it was not long after that her housemate now started following me, and I saw that he worked at Kennedy Space Center, and I said, oh, wow, there's space people on here. Cool.
I was on before Ben.
Yeah. Did that get you any kind of an award?
No. The thing is, though, I won't get into the story, but at some point I deleted everything. I deleted my Facebook account, my MySpace account, my Twitter account. I deleted everything. I was like, I can't deal with all of this input. And that same kind of thing, like I felt like I was needed constantly and all these different things. And I was just like, no. And I stopped. I quit absolutely everything. So now my new join date is well beyond what his is because I rejoined.
But we know the truth.
Who has more followers?
I believe the thing is that it's kind of split between Ben Credible, Carrie Ann, and Spacevidcast. Yeah. Spacevidcast, by and away, blows us both away. But our personal accounts, I am listed more than he is. I believe I have more followers. I'm not sure though.
We can pull it up. Let's me look.
I'm looking.
I'm actually.
You have 612.
Oh, it's gone up.
It's funny the metagame that gets played, right? Numbers don't count, but they count. But they don't count, but they count. You know.
Well, yeah, we kind of we mentioned a couple of things about how many followers we have and how I don't really pay attention, and I kind of I sort of pay attention. I don't really care if it's 612 or 403. That doesn't really. But I am kind of slightly conscious of it. I know it was 609 this morning.
It's they're entertaining numbers, but they're not reliably informative.
Yeah.
But right, I don't care who they are. I mean, if they're just
spammers. Every
spammers.
once in a while, I go through and get rid of the bots
Yeah.
and the real estate companies and all
Yep.
that. So
Yeah. Yep.
I know everybody that's following me is actually following me. So
Have you guys used TweetRank? It does a composite score based on a number of different factors about how often you're retweeted and how often you tweet, how many people follow.
Lout also does that.
I've tried some of those things, but I find them to be buggy a lot of times.
And a little bit like it never updates after the first time you put your.
And I really don't care because
it's because you know who
you
talk
have the
to.
relationships with and who you're reaching.
And that's what matters.
And then it's like a ranking
Ben
system,
has
right?
Yeah, and that's just distasteful anyway. You know, it's not about the numbers; it's about the people.
Yeah, it's more like how many people interact with me. And I don't have no clue what the number actually is because there's tons of them.
Or what is the quality of those interactions?
Exactly.
I mean, you can just say hi every day to somebody, or you can collaborate with somebody and work together on an album. Or,
Exactly.
Oh, you have way more clout than he does. That's the influence scale. There you
can
go.
bet that she's going to mention that.
Go ahead and say it. It's being archived.
I know. I don't know how many tweets we each have.
We can look at that too.
That's easy to find.
I want to say I even have more tweets.
I have what might be a new question if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, no
I'm
problem.
Actually pretty new at it. I've only been 300 tweets. I just passed 300 today.
Yay.
When's the last time you tweeted?
I don't know, half an hour ago. I'm involved in space stuff and I like space stuff and I'll tweet some about space stuff, but I'm also a telecommunications nerd and I do a lot of telecommunications stuff and I'll tweet about that too. But it seems like I should probably have multiple accounts if I have multiple personalities.
No.
Is there an answer?
That's a big argument, actually.
Because I have my space side. As many people also know, I am a diehard Bears fan. I am a diehard Cubs fan. I tweet about those all the time. And I mean,
and I just ignore her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but I still follow her.
It's
because
part
I
of the
find that the other
there's certain things that...
Is it about, is it you're following the person, or you're following the personality, or are you following...
It's, for me, I want to know the whole person. I don't like it when it's divided up, like, oh, this is my work personality, and this is my real life, home personality. I like to know all of it as one person.
What if you work for NASA?
That's a big what if.
It depends. I mean, is your Twitter account Dennis, or is your Twitter account for NASA?
Which is it like?
But that's we're doing HSF.
Well, then that's the differentiation.
No. And when you do Dennis, you're being Dennis.
Right.
Which you might talk about the HSF stuff that you've been doing, but your account as Dennis is not
right
because you have to have
it. The reason I say about the official is because as an official, you have to answer to the public, which I hate that term, the public. It's like, no, citizenship is everybody. There is no public and private and government. It's all of us. And Twitter kind of flattens that, which is nice.
I understand that kind of a situation, and sometimes there's a need for like a corporate account plus, a personal one. But if you just have two different interests, to split that up, I'd say that's a mistake. Because you're going to reach more, like, you'll get telecommunications people that'll start to get interested in the space stuff, or vice versa. So it's, like, Aaliyah, tell them about your climbing group.
I have two totally separate groups of people that intersect, like, with two others that climb and also work for NASA. The space climb continuum, we call them. They're like, but yeah, if you follow me, sometimes I'll talk about work, sometimes I'll talk about space conferences, sometimes I'll post interesting space articles, but a lot of it is all of my climbing adventures. And if you don't like that, you don't have to follow me.
Right.
But that's who I am, and I would never have two accounts just because. I think I wouldn't be able to be honest on either one.
Unless one was official. You do.
Well, we've
that's
done a lot of these, like, how do you tweet from NASA type internal workshops. And that is a big question that a lot of the scientists and engineers ask is, how do I properly represent myself while also following all the rules that NASA has? Because the civil servants really feel like they have to they're representing work all the time. And an answer for one of them was to do something, he's going to call it planetary PI, and because he's a planetary scientist, he's going to post all of his work on that. And it's going to be like an alter ego, like Little SDO was, or like the Mars Phoenix. And he's just not going to do a personal one. Like, he wants to broadcast and communicate his research. He doesn't feel comfortable having a personal one because it might reflect badly. So really, it's just whatever they feel comfortable with. But you have the I'm not I do not represent.
Yeah.
You know, and even that doesn't work all the time. So I think it's a case-by-case thing.
Right, because people still, I say right on my profile that my tweets are my own. I don't represent my contractor, employer, or NASA. Yeah. But yet I still get people asking me questions about like official NASA functions, visitor center functions. People find me through Flickr and ask me stuff, and Facebook messages. It comes in from every...
Coming from a space advocacy point of view, my account is my account. And if I want to say F you, I will. I usually don't. I mean, every once in a while, I will be frustrated enough that I want to, what have you. But I do comprehend that people have found me via Spacevidcast, most likely. Yeah. And so I do kind of half represent that to a certain extent. But my point was space advocacy, saying that maybe some of those telecommunications people, much like Ben's story is, he was really into the tech, he was really into the tech, he was really into the tech, and space is kind of like that big tech. See what I'm saying? That you might be able to infiltrate a little bit or re-spark some interest by combining the two specifically.
I actually had 2 accounts. I split off and made a different account when Kara was born, and I was like, oh god, I'm going to overwhelm everybody with like these stupid stories of, the baby wiggled her toes! You know, and like, a certain percentage of my followers just jumped over and grabbed that one too, because they still wanted to know all that stuff, and eventually it was like, well, I'm just posting the same thing twice. There's no point in having a second account for like family crap, because... And then Kara got her own account anyway, so...
She's a great job, by the way. Yeah. It's amazing at that age. Yeah.
She plays the piano.
Full, complete thoughts. It's twit pics. It's great.
You didn't have her tweeting before she was born automatically using a kind of accelerometer and Arduino.
Someone did that. Someone did
that. Like,
well,
like
Nick
I
has
just kicked, or I just kicked 3 times in the past 30 minutes. Before the child was born, it was tweeting.
Wow. Well, I know somebody that has a Twitter account for their unborn child, and they say like, I'm the size of a banana today.
One of my good buddies on Twitter is a bunny.
That's Nick's cat.
Yeah. There's stuffed animals that have their own.
Yeah.
But people were interested in that. Like they really were like, well, I see everything else that you do. Why wouldn't I want to know, like, have the video of your child screaming? You know, like,
I think though that's in the evolution of a relationship. You know, like when I first follow somebody, it might be because I saw in their bio that they climb. But in that skill that I think we all subconsciously possess to filter out all the noise, you know, I'll immediately go to the climbing tweets that I'm interested in. Everything else just kind of becomes buzz. Yeah. But, you know, as I get to know them and as we talk, yes, I'm interested in the dogs. Yes, I'm interested in your baby. Like, those things become less noise and pop out more because we've developed a relationship.
We are coming close to our timing update. Just FYI. Anybody else want to add their name?
Did you put Arthur up
You were there because you were speaking.
Oh.
My name's not there.
It's also fun to find out, like, what you climb, and, you know, it's just interesting when you find out things about other people and you didn't know, like, oh yeah, I follow this person because they're spacey, and then all of a sudden they're talking about, like, what? You love green jello too? That's crazy. Nobody else does that. And you're like, no, there's a whole green jello club. Like,
putting it up on the whiteboard. Should we be putting all these in? Should we tweet it?
Did somebody take a picture?
There's quite a bit of it already being tweeted. My comments about Facebook and Twitter has been retweeted several times already.
What was the comment? Which one?
The friends you used to have, friends you will have.
That's a good quote.
There was a line. I'll try and keep this PG, but there was a line on the TV show Mercy. This guy had been in a coma for 10 years, and this girl was trying to explain to him what Facebook was, and she said, "It's a website where you look up all the people that you wanted to screw in high school but didn't."
I always spell it wrong.
I know, everybody always spells it wrong.
Yeah, or even worse, saying you feel better about it. Seeing what they're doing now.
Exactly.
You either spell it wrong or you pronounce it wrong.
I know.
Or both.
I actually tried when I got the list from our high school reunion, where people.
See, that's what I call myself being resident in the chat room, because 9% of people around here look at that.
I was like,
reset or
I'm
resident.
the one
Resident is so much closer.
out and doing something
we just
in
took
my
it almost like
life
a family.
besides having